Bueno, nos vemos el sábado temprano. Bye bye.
start the meeting, we'll stand to salute the flag. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Counsel Rourke.
Here.
Counsel Samaras.
Here.
Counsel Chow.
Here.
Counsel Conway.
Here.
Counsel Drinkwater.
Here.
Counsel Elliott.
Here.
Mayor Leahy.
Here.
Counsel Mercier.
Yeah.
Counsel Noon.
Here.
9 present.
Thank you. All right, tonight, we have a couple of agenda items. First on the agenda item is 2.1, discussion various 2021 municipal election issues, including but not limited to amending the consent decree to allow for creation of sub-districts and any other necessary relief. So why don't I turn it over, Madam Manager, through you to the city solicitor?
So, to the council, before you on your desks is a draft language that would be, if approved by the council, would then be sent to the plaintiff's council for their approval and then forwarded to the federal court to seek relief pursuant to the language before you. The amendment to the consent decree essentially would allow the election commission, and 2 of the members are with us this evening, to move forward as they see fit to subdivide the districts, currently 8 districts. And it would give them the authority to subdivide to whatever extent that they feel is in the best interest of the city and its voters, which is consistent with the authority given to election commissioners to administer the election and to select polling locations that would then service members of the public. One of the issues that has come up repeatedly has been whether the city is currently in violation of any of the Mass General laws with respect to precincts, and it has been our position that that does not apply to the consent decree. There is not a violation. We're not in violation of any area of the law. It is an opinion that is shared by the Secretary of State's office as well. This just does not apply to us under these circumstances. However, as I indicated, I think before an election commission meeting, that particularly since we're amending the consent decree anyway, we will add that language in and make it clear and have the approval of the federal court that aspects of the Massachusetts general laws that we cannot comply with for obvious reasons, that under this language we will be relieved of any obligation to do so.
Is that it? You're all set?
That's the extent of the change.
Okay. So we're here tonight for this part to amend the consent decree, allowing for the creation of sub-districts and any other necessary relief. Do any of the committee members want to speak? Councilor Noon.
Mr. Mayor, through you to the city solicitor, particularly with the consent decree, the joint motions to amend the consent decree, how soon can we get the judge to sign off on this, and that assuming that the judge is in town?
I don't know exactly how long it will take, but I wouldn't anticipate that it would be, I would anticipate that once approved by the plaintiffs, which also would be, a matter of days, this is not a substantive change and they're aware of it, it could be as soon as a week, maybe 2 weeks.
2 weeks is a bit too long. Anyhow, with regard to the consent decree, the amended consent decree, would that allow us to sub-district some,
Yes.
if not all?
Correct. So
Okay.
the function of the function of this,
Okay, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, the function of this language is to, in the broadest possible way, since we don't yet have a plan, is to allow us, or allow the Election Commission to subdivide the district. So without court approval and/or, or not and, but or approval from the state legislature, the city would be unable to subdivide the districts, just like we are unable to create precincts. So this would allow the Election Commission and the city to move forward to whatever extent the Election Commission believes is in the best interest of the city, and subdivide all of the districts or some of the districts, whatever they determine. Right now, the current plan is to divide all of the districts into 2 districts, which would
Well-
then provide for 16 districts, each of which would have a separate polling location.
I'm pleased to hear this, but also while we working and trying to get the plaintiff to sign off, as well as the judge, the plaintiff to agree and the judge to sign off, that if we would, I would really suggest that the directors of election get out there if we don't already have concrete or specific location should the subdivision happen, right? If the judge sign off on it, then we need to find a location. Is that correct?
Correct. That's the matter that is pending before the Election Commission.
Okay.
They have voted last Tuesday, and they're going to be, the chair has established a set of weekly meetings. So the Election Commission is meeting weekly on all of these different issues in order to continue moving the ball forward. They, pursuant to the last meeting, last Tuesday, there was a vote to hire an expert, and it is my intention that we will have an expert available to meet with the Election Commission next Tuesday, and that individual would again really be able to provide guidance as to this administering portion of the election. Once you have the districts, if you're now subdividing the districts, this individual would have expertise in this type of election administration. Also similar to, obviously, precincting.
The reason I'm asking that the director of election get out there and identify some of those locations very soon prior to the Tuesday meeting is because time is of an essence right now. We don't have too much time.
Excuse me, I should just,
Thank you.
sure, no.
That's all I have.
So I should just reiterate too, that it's up to the body tonight to just vote on the dissent decree. We have no authority to tell the election committee what to do, how to do their job. So we don't want to confuse the 2 issues. The council cannot subdivide, make precincts, or influence the election commission. They have their job to do, we have our job to do. Tonight for us is to vote on the dissent decree and make sure that, we do as much as possible as we can. We all want the election to go off without a hitch. We want as many people to get out, to have access to polling stations. We all want that. So I just don't want to confuse our roles. Councilor Mercia?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think that I have a right to make an opinion. Doesn't mean that I'm telling the Election Commission what to do. So I will just kind of start in the beginning of how this took place. So we, as a council, we voted for a home rule petition to, 1, secure early in-person voting, no excuse mail-in voting, and the use of ballot drop boxes, right? We did that. And then we realized that people were upset because there weren't enough. There's some places in the districts that are very hard with 1 polling place. I understand that. So I want to work within the law. Now, this is what my understanding is. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. In order to create the sub-districts, was it true that the Secretary of State identified 2 avenues the city could take? The one I feel, and it's only my opinion, is the most reasonable would be to amend the consent decree with the agreement of the voting rights lawsuit plaintiffs and approval of a federal judge. That, to me, would be the most logical and fastest route to take. That's just my opinion. I'm not ordering or telling anybody what to do. Now, I don't know if I can say this part, because maybe we're not on that yet, but the next step is to see if LHS Associates, that's the vendor that supplies the city's election equipment, can it be reprogrammed in our voting system with a new algorithm to recognize these new districts? Do we know that yet? Do we know that?
That issue remains an open question. I had further conversations with LHS today. They, earlier this week, they were looking at, not to get too into the weeds here, but they had reported to the city that they were unable to program the poll pads to accommodate a sub-district. Since that time, and they in fact then reached out to the manufacturer to see if the manufacturer could assist, and we were still waiting back on the manufacturer. Since that time, they have continued to work on the issue. I spoke to them today, and what they are now looking at is condensing fields that could be anywhere, could have normally contained, say, 4 separate fields of information, and getting them down to 2 fields of information. So it's possible, although they don't know yet, and it will be based on data that they receive from the city, that poll pads will be equipped with wards and precincts, even though they are no longer applicable, as well as a district, and not reference the sub-district. Again, these systems haven't been tested out. We don't know if they're going to work, but they are continuing to diligently look at the issue and to see if there is an avenue to accomplish the sub-districting and of creating 16 sub-districts.
But do you know how long it'll be before we get an answer as to yes, they can, no, they can't?
I don't, and in fact, the Secretary of State's office, I spoke to them today, they are also continuing to work on the issue. They feel that they have been able to make some progress in assisting us, and they may have further information as early as tomorrow.
Is there any truth to the belief that we could use the 2010 census? Is that
No.
true?
No.
These are the questions that I just had to ask.
Yeah, I understand that, there's information that keeps circulating, and there was I was asked by counsel to the Secretary of State's office to provide to the council a communication from their office that addresses some of the misinformation that has been circulating. That was one aspect of it.
Thank you. I don't have any further questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Samaras?
Thank you. Well, a couple of things. I do believe Councilor Noon was just talking about making sure that all of us that are involved in this process, whether it's the commissioners or whatever, are anticipating any move. We're not waiting for a final result, but we're going to try to do as much work as we can to be prepared if we have to be. But my basic question, everybody's asking the same question, but to the city solicitor, if this request of the courts passes, and I don't believe for any reason why it wouldn't, do you feel that we have the time with all of the issues that we have to deal with? Is this possible for us to handle this during this time, now that, to be ready for a primary in September.
Let me just add too, that,
Okay.
again, you know, we're here to vote on the consent decree.
Yeah.
And later on the agenda, there'll be time for,
I understand
Commissioner,
it,
she
but I
wants it, but-
think it's an important question.
no, I think the commission would know more than the office, but I'll let her answer. I just,
That's the work that, but the thing is, the office, the work, the expected work that has to be done.
So at the outset, one of the concerns that was raised by myself and Mr. Veloso was the concern of time. And so as we continue to explore these issues, and they are all being actively explored, as we continue to explore these issues, there are other things that we normally would be moving forward with that are now on hold. As to how long this process will take, it is unknown. All I can say is that those that are involved in the effort is ongoing. It has been nonstop trying to come up with a solution. One of the other things that was addressed in the letter from the Secretary of State is the notion that these things are easy, that there's a simple solution. That just does not accurately reflect the technical difficulties that we face. Our most important obligation is to make sure that whatever system we have, that when somebody goes to vote, that it is a safe and secure system, that the votes can be tabulated. With respect to your comments and Councilor Noon's comments about moving forward, we are doing that in every possible way. Meetings today took place at the manager's office in terms of the outreach efforts, so that when we're ready, everything will be in place. But as far as identifying where the polling locations are going to be, that's going to be dependent, and that is dependent on what ultimately the plan is and the decision is. So, for example, at one of the Election Commission meetings, half of the commission had voted, it failed, but half of the commission had voted to have 3 polling locations in each district. That was not something that we recommended, and it caused a great concern, at least from a legal standpoint. Regardless, until we know what the plan is, until we know how these districts are going to be divided, then it becomes difficult to move forward in identifying things. By the same token, the Election Commission, as I said, is meeting every week. They are going to be meeting with an expert to assist them in these issues. And everything that we can do in the background, whether it's moving forward with solicitations and drafting of letters, all of that is continuing.
All right, so the basic tools are out there
The basic tools are out there,
to
right.
function.
But we need, the city as well as LHS needs to ultimately know what the specifics are. That's the critical component at this point.
I think the mayor did allude to that there's no council, there's nobody in this room that wants to see the election process, put in such a situation where it makes it difficult for people to vote. But Madam Manager, this city council requested to the general court, petition the general court for the ability to do certain things that we did during the presidential elections. But I think it's a moot point at this point. Could you discuss that a little bit? So
Yes,
people
thank you.
Aware, I think everybody has to be aware of what's on the table, what we can do, and then what we hope to do.
Well, one of the things, thank you, Mr. Mayor, through you to the council. One of the things that the council did do a few weeks back was pass a home rule petition to ask for the ability to have early in-person voting, to have mail-in voting, and to have drop boxes. And that was because those abilities under the COVID law that had been passed last year expired on June 30th. As we mentioned on that date, the matter was in a joint subcommittee at the State House, but it didn't come out when other COVID relief was granted. So just to be sure that we would be able to have those opportunities for people to vote, we filed the home rule petition. What did happen last Friday was a report came out of the joint subcommittee. The House took the matter up earlier this week, and the Senate voted on it yesterday, and it's my understanding it's heading to Governor Baker's desk. He may or may not have signed it, but it's fully expected that he will sign it. And so So we do have the ability, every community in the Commonwealth now for this year, for the municipal elections, can have early in-person voting, can have mail-in voting and drop boxes. So that was something that we did proactively, just to make sure that those were in place.
Thank you. I just wanted to make sure that things like that are out there and our public is aware of what we have. And there's other steps to go beyond that process. Thank you.
Counselor Elliott's on Zoom, and he'd like to speak. I don't know if he's going to come up on the two side screens, but I hope everybody can hear him. You can kind of look at the council's desk, and he might appear there. Counselor Elliott?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll be brief. I'm going to support this motion and the next motion. I do feel it's imperative that we make every effort to ensure that each and every voter has equal access to polling locations. I appreciate the efforts everybody is putting forward. I think it's important to leave no perception to any voter on election day, primary or otherwise, that we didn't put our best effort forward. And I know it's going to be a challenge. You know, there's some obstacles, but I'm going to support this because I think it's important to send that message. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other councilors before Counselor Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just wanted to, for clarification's sake, ask a couple questions. We did just receive the language of this amendment to the consent decree. And as you stated, Madam Solicitor, it does do two different things, and just want to make sure everyone is aware. The first thing that I think this council has all requested happen is to ask for permission to create sub-districts within the existing city council districts for the purpose of creating additional polling locations, which I think is really important. The second thing that it does that we're voting on is to provide us with relief from any applicable state or federal laws. I think that would be namely, and I understand, Madam Solicitor, that you feel we may not need this permission, but namely the state laws that limit precincts to 4,000 or fewer people. So I just wanted to make sure it was clear that, and have you clarify that it is those two things that we are voting on. I know that, as was stated by this full council in a previous meeting, we all prefer the option that would expand upon the voting locations that were included in the original plan. But we are essentially putting ourselves somewhat out on a limb that this can happen and this can be implemented. So, this is something that I am going to support to move this process along and get this amendment in front of a federal judge as soon as possible, and hopefully have it approved as soon as possible, while the Election Commission works concurrently to that process with the Elections Office to draw subdivision boundaries and identify potential additional polling locations, as well as address any other issues, administrative issues that may come up with entering the sub-district data into the systems that we need to provide the proper voter lists at the polling location. So I just wanted to make sure that I'm understanding this amendment correctly and sort of the two provisions that we're voting on. So just wanted to have you potentially elaborate on that for a second. But also, just another question: has this language already been reviewed and approved by the plaintiffs, or will it go to them for their review and approval after we assumedly support this and pass it?
Madam Solicitor?
Sure. First, with respect to the plaintiffs, once the council has weighed in on this language, then it will immediately be sent to the plaintiffs for their approval. And again, this is consistent with discussions that we've had in the past weeks about the types of changes that we were looking to make. And with respect to what this language does, yes, it allows for the Election Commission to move forward as they see fit with sub-districting. And as to the relief from the Mass General laws, it allows for relief under that. And I guess I would note that, again, it is not just my opinion, it is the opinion of the Secretary of State's office that those laws clearly do not apply. However, they have been reiterated so many times at this point that, and we're amending the consent decree anyway, and I think I said at the last Election Commission meeting, the simple solution to end this discussion once and for all is to just simply include it in the consent decree. So that's what we're doing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Chow?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I think that all the comments by the prior councilors in reference to the essence of time and eventually to the number of polling stations in 2 polling stations or more in every district, which I support, is relevant to the purpose for us being here to vote on this amendment to the consent decree. The prior councilors already mentioned some good points. I just want to have make a point and a question, because once we vote on this consent decree, it set a pathway, hopefully, to a successful establishing more than 1 polling stations in each district. And we are going to hire an expert to come help draw the line.
Right, that's
But,
the Election Commission, not us, up to us, so.
Sure, I understand that, but it is relevant to our vote here because, like I said, it's going to set a pathway to that eventuality. And I just want to make a suggestion if when that happens, if the expert would involve the neighborhood groups and the residents as to get the opinions and the thoughts, the input on where the second polling station should be. It should not be just drawn by, I'm assuming it could be an outside expert, like the last time. They might not know the neighborhood as we do. We've been using the District 4 as an example, as a unique situation, but I do think that District 6, the Lower Highlands, is another unique district where the displaced voters that in prior elections, they would have voted at the senior center or at the Bailey School, with the new polling station all being at the Maury. I'm not quite sure if that would be advantageous or not, but I'd like to see that, you know, the expert will talk to neighborhood groups and the residents to establish where the second polling station should be. And like I said, it is relevant, directly relevant to our vote today, because that's going to set a pathway towards eventually establishing the second polling stations. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Conway?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Through you to the city solicitor, I just want to see if I can get something straight here. And I will support the motion. The question I have, if we're not able to reach the goals that we're trying to here, is there a cutoff point? Is there a cutoff date that we have put aside so that, you know, we get the original 8 polling places correct? Because it still needs to have a tremendous amount of information that has to be put out there into the community in so many different ways. So I'm just wondering if that has been discussed at all.
Solicitor?
So no, the consent decree doesn't put any sort of an artificial timeframe on ending this process. Again, there are 2 of the commissioners here, but the language gives the flexibility to the city through the election commissioners to be able to put a time frame on it themselves. And I think, again, it's important to note that the chair has set weekly meetings. I think that it's more than fair to say that everybody that has been involved in the process understands and knows that time is of the essence, and they certainly have been proceeding with that in mind. And if we get to a point where it either can't be done or there just isn't the time to really do it, then I have confidence that the Election Commission will take whatever appropriate action to ensure that what needs to be done will get done.
Okay, thank you. And also, one other question. We received a document on our desk when we came in here, and through you, Mr. Mayor, to the city solicitor. It seems like there's a lot of legal conversation going on here, and it's, I believe it's from to Sanari Michelle, is it? I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that name correct. Could you give a brief synopsis of what this is all about to us, the council, and also to the public?
So this is a communication that is from the Secretary of State's office. She is counsel to the Municipal Election Division. The letter essentially speaks for itself, but it really attempts to, there has been, and I think it's been alluded to, there's been some confusion in terms of statements that are being made, and this letter lays out the opinion of the Secretary of State's office. They did not, for example, endorse or work on, the roadmap to 16 polling locations. I think one of the most important things, frankly, about the communication that is something for all of us to be mindful of is the questions raised by their counsel, which is, and I'll read from the letter, if the issue is just to make it easier to vote, is it really necessary to create sub-districts for all the council districts, or just subdivide the ones where there are challenges to accessing a polling place? And then she's specifically referring to District 4, where there is a geographic boundary that certain residents would need to cross the river. Basically, the letter sort of lays out a number of different issues that she would and asked that I bring it to the attention of the Election Commission as well as the council. And again, the goal of these elections is to have a safe and secure election, and that's going to be the critical component. So again, the letter speaks for itself. It gets into a lot of different areas, but I think that's one of the critical components is we need to understand why we're doing it, what we're attempting to accomplish, how necessary it is. She does speak to the fact that the city, and as was alluded to by the city manager, had weeks ago been one of just a handful of communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts that sought for special legislation to introduce early voting, mail-in voting, and drop boxes, and that those types of mitigation efforts really go well beyond a single-day polling location, and I agree. She also talked about the fact that we would again be offering transportation services on Election Day. I think, as I said at one of the other meetings, the election office has done quite a lot over the years to register voters, to improve polling locations, to make sure that they comply with the law, which wasn't the case when we started this process. There were a number of them that didn't. The election office, when early voting was first introduced to communities, it was the City of Lowell election office that received a gold star from the Secretary of State's office for having really the most robust outreach all over the city and really drummed up support, and we had some of the best numbers as well, and that has continued. One of the other things that we would be doing again this year is not only would we take advantage of the full 10 days allowable for early voting, but we would again offer early voting on Saturdays and Sundays, which we've done in the past. And in the past, I don't believe we had to do it, but we did it anyway, so.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And when all set, we'll take a roll call on the vote. So I need a motion to motion to accept and place on file by
moved.
Councilor Noon, seconded by Councilor Samara. Roll call. Yeah, okay. Motion to amend the consent decree and allow for the creation of sub-districts and the other necessary relief. Motion by Councilor Noon, second by Councilor Samara.
Counsel Rourke.
Yes.
Counsel Samaras.
Yes.
Counsel Chow.
Yes.
Counsel Conway.
Yes.
Counsel Drinkwater.
Yes.
Counsel Elliott.
Yes.
Mayor Leahy.
Yes,
Counsel Mercia.
Yes.
Counsel Noon.
Yes.
9 yeas.
thank you. Next item on the agenda, quite honestly, I don't know why I put it on there or how it got on, but it talks about reviewing the current election commission sub-districting plan and accompanying timeline and implementation of 2 polling locations for each sub-district. So I think that, again, is up to the commission, and I don't know why that got on there. But the third item, we did have people sign up. We have a lot of people signed up to speak if they still want to. But the third item is a request that the members of the election commission attend, and if they choose to answer any questions, they could update us with any updates. So I know you're having weekly meetings, so maybe you might want to just give us an update, and then we'll go from there.
Good evening, esteemed councilors, Madam Manager, City Solicitor O'Connor, Attorney Veloso, and my fellow commissioners, and the general public. My name is Zoe Janeku. I am the Chair of the Elections Commission, and I thank you all for the opportunity to speak to you this evening on behalf of the Commission. We are here to serve on this Commission with dedication, thoughtfulness, passion, and integrity. We take our roles incredibly seriously, and we look forward to the continued harmonious relationship that we currently withstand with the elections office team and the law office as well. During our meeting on June 16th, the Commission was presented with a comprehensive plan by Attorney Veloso that outlined what we were told was the only way to ensure the integrity of our upcoming elections. This plan was to include 1 polling location per district. During that meeting, we brought up the appearance of what may look like voter suppression by reducing the amount of polling locations. We were told by Attorney Veloso that per the Secretary of State's office and LHS, that this was the only way to ensure the integrity and safeguard our elections process. Barring the absence of the 2020 census data and within accordance with the consent decree, armed with that information, we voted 4-0 to adopt the plan. We later received conflicting information from advocacy groups during our June 29th meeting, coupled with the outcry of voter suppression due to the reduction of polling locations by the general population. We decided then to reconsider the former decision because the new information that was presented didn't jive with us. Since then, we've continued to receive conflicting information on whether we do or do not have it can securely and accurately keep from reducing the amount of polling locations. During our July 12th and 15th meetings, the Commission voted to adopt the plan deemed as the Road to 16, proposed by Jeff Foster and Common Cause. We all agreed that having more than 1 polling location per district was the right thing to do, especially if we can continue to safeguard and the integrity of our elections. More recently, we've also voted to have an expert brought forth by City Solicitor O'Connor and the law office to help us with this. I humbly and respectfully ask the council to request the vendor LHS and a representative from the Secretary of State and the attorneys for the plaintiffs for the consent decree to come before the council and resolve some of the conflicting information that the Commission has received. I thank you so very much for this time and consideration for this request. and I can answer any of your questions.
Okay, thank you. Do any of the councilors have a question at this time? Okay, all right, thank you. All right, so we do have a lot of registered speakers tonight. Like to stay on topic about, you know, we voted for the consent decree to move on. Now it's up to the, you know, see where that goes, then we're gonna get hopefully more polling locations if we can. We heard what everybody is here to talk about. We agree. We're basically, I guess, we're caught short with the time span, the amount of days before the preliminaries, and then the election period. So if we have registered speakers and you'd still like to come up and speak, you have 5 minutes. Please stay on point and just state your name and address for the record. So we'll go down the line.
Through Nick and Bang.
Mr. Mayor, distinguished councilors, and member of the community in Lowell, my name is Fru Nkimbe. I live on 1165 Middlesex Street. I am here to speak about the voter registration, and also it looks as if the motion has been supported, and I also just want to echo that many times I've been in this council, and most of you councillors have spoken as to how you can expand people to vote, and limiting the polling stations is another way that will go contrary to what most of you have advocated. I do believe that we live in a nation that democracy is a vote by the people, for the people, of the people, by the people, and for the people. And limiting this polling station is just a way to limit people to express themselves, because if you look at the redistricting, it's so difficult. There are some districts that you have to cross the river, and if there is only one polling station, that would limit people who do not have the ability to move. And even right now, the voting stations, I used to vote at daily schools. Right now, I don't even know if I will vote there or not. So I think that it is but good for the council to make it, facilitate it for Lowellians to come out and express themselves and vote for people who will elect us. So I am so happy that the council has adopted this motion. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Judith Durant.
Hi, I'll be very quick. Judith Durant, 50 Viola Street. I don't believe that there's any attempt at voter suppression. I don't think anything, strange or untoward is going on. I just think that we need as much opportunity for people to vote as possible. I know I'm out on the doors now, as many people are campaigning, and the second question I ask is, do you understand the new voting system? And more than half of the people that I would expect would know really do not. And so it's an education thing that we're doing out there in addition to supporting our candidates. And then the other question is, well, okay, now I understand, after I explained 15 minutes worth, but where do I vote? I have no idea. So I just say the longer this goes on, the more people that we're missing, all of us out there, the campaign soldiers are missing an opportunity to help people understand what's going on. So I just urge you to be as quick as possible with this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mona Tyree.
Hello, my name is Mona Tyree, and I currently live at 24 West 6th Street in Lowell. I'd like to thank you, Madam Manager, Mayor Leahy and the City Council for allowing me to speak. This is a very important matter regarding the closing of polling locations. I strongly urge the council to vote in favor of having at least 2 polling locations per district. Only allowing for 1 polling location per district seems to walk the fine line towards voter suppression. And I would like to state my reasons why I feel this way, and I'm not the only one that feels this way. I'm probably only one that will speak about this. Maybe not. But the reasons for me is I currently am a registered voter and I go to the Greenelge School. Taking away that voting location and having me go to Robinson School, I walk. So, and I think I'm fairly healthy. However, other community members, they could have a disability. There's senior residents, college students that may not have transportation to get to all the different polling locations. It causes a barrier by not guaranteeing equal voter accessibility to polling locations. City councilors, I implore you all to assist with making this happen and hope you will advocate for all the people that you are representing in the city of Lowell. All constituents should have fair and equitable access to be able to vote. There should not be obstacles put in the way, such as logistics. I've been paying close attention to what's been going on, and all I keep hearing is logistics, logistics. Well, there has to be a way. Logistics really, truly has no place and has nothing to do with equal voting for all. So we're being given obstacles, which is a barrier. We can find a way, but we all have to work together. When there are obstacles, there should also be more willingness to explore all the avenues of a solution instead of creating more obstacles, which are unfortunately has been shown in the last few weeks, and actually I could say in the last probably 6 months. What I am asking is for the City Council to please hear me and to all work on a solution that is feasible and equitable for all of your constituents. I thank you for your time and I appreciate it.
Ron Peastry. Vanna Thang.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Leahy and Madam City Manager and all of the city councilors and community members that are here tonight. My name is Vanak Thang. I'm a teacher at the Lowell Public School and an advocate for students and families. That's ongoing work that I do. I'm also a proud member of the CMA board, Mill City Grows, Family Acre, Daycare, and just to name a few organizations that I am involved in. So I'm very much a community person. Though I wear many hats in the city of Lowell, I am here as a Lowell resident tonight, and I'd like to thank every one of you, the city councils, for voting for this. And I do believe that the more voting places that our residents can access would be wonderful for us, for the families. And tonight's topic on polling location is very important, and that it's same importance for everyone. And this is part of the reason why, we come together. People from all over the city decide to come in here, different organizations who think this matters a lot to our people, our residents, and I'm really happy that we are able to do this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great.
Tara Hong.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Councilor, and Madam Manager. My name is Tiara Hong. I live at 22 Canton Street here in Lowell, which is District 6, this is Councilor Child District. I'm here tonight to show my support for to have at least 2 or more polling locations in each of the districts that we have. You know, I actually wrote the whole speak of it, but since the City Council vote for what I want, and what many community want, which is great, so I have to go the whole speak. But before I step back, I just want to mention that one of the reasons why I believe we need 2 or more polling locations is that this year election is one of the most important election in Lowell history due to the new voting system that we have between the district, all the chain that we have. We cannot make any more confusion for the public to vote. And this year, we might even have many more young generation to join and vote for this election. This election is important, and I would ask my city council, all of you here, to work as hard as possible with the election commission and to make it vote as easy as possible for people to do. I don't believe that it's hard to do. If you all work together, things will be possible. I'm a part of Lowell Leader Crew as well. We like to say tomorrow be more of us, and tomorrow be more of us, and we can work together to fix this problem. But thank you so much, and thank you.
Thank you.
Maria Claudio, she was on a Zoom. I let her in twice, but she might be having some difficulties.
Hi.
Okay.
Yeah, I believe she's having some technical difficulties. She was going to speak in Spanish, and I have what she was going to say in English, if that's acceptable.
Sure.
Okay, thanks for understanding. So I'm going to say I'm Maria Claudio. I'm not Maria Claudio. Pretend she's talking.
Just state your name, please.
My name is Aurora Erickson. I live at 100 Mass Mills. So this is what Maria was going to say. Hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak in front of you today. My name is Maria Claudio, and I live at 192 Suffolk Street, Apartment 1. I have lived in Lowell since 1998, and I am very involved in the city, but I don't have a car. I go to all the places walking with my cane, but when it rains or is very hot, I cannot go out due to health problems. Not having an accessible place to vote makes elections difficult for me, and I know that it is the same for many people in my community. My father had times where he couldn't go to vote because he had no transportation and the place was too far away at the Robinson School. Please do not prevent my community from participating in the process of electing our representatives. Let's make the election process clear and easy for the people. Thank you.
Thank you.
Aurora, would you like to speak on your behalf, or you're next in line? Okay. Paul Gaudette.
Thank you, and good evening, everyone. My name is Paul Gaudette. I live at 4 Bertram Street in Lowell, in the Highland section. I belong to a group I mentioned last council meeting, Merrimack Valley Project. I'm an officer on the board there. And one of the important goals that we have as a social justice organization is to promote civic engagement and voter participation. And so we'd like to add our voice to the effort to have 16 or more polling places. I'd just like to commend the council, the solicitor's office, and the election commission for being so conscientious throughout this process. I've attended, this is the 3rd meeting on this topic, and I sense only goodwill and integrity trying to solve this problem, to promote fairness and accessibility for everyone. That said, I think it's human nature being what it is. I think most of the folks who are speaking in favor here are reminding you that delays just crop up and Murphy's Law is always in place. So in whatever ways you can expedite the process, we want to encourage you and let you know that the whole city is concerned and watching as you go through this process. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm going to apologize in advance for this. Vitcha Khan?
Hello, everyone. It's Vitcha Kong. Thank you. This evening, I am representing, well, I'm a community member. I live here in Lowell. I live on 103 Sherman Street, but I am the interim executive director for the Cambodian Mutual Assistance Association. So I want to come and speak. I'm sure everyone here is going to speak the same, but I want to represent the community that we serve, which is mostly the elderly Cambodian community. And having just one location for them to go and vote would be absolutely a problem, since we worked so hard in the last few years to promote voting and to educate our community members on voting, as you've heard from our civic engagement team, Tara. It's been difficult, and it's been an uphill battle to educate our community members on even voting, and then having this barrier of just having one location would just be another difficult process for them to get over. So I thank you for voting to amend the decree and having the possibility and having the conversation and having more than 16 polling locations if possible. I think that this would affect multiple communities, not just the voting community, but having equitable access to voting is extremely important, and I thank the council for your time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reverend Heather Prince Doss, she's coming in from Zoom.
Hello, everyone. Good evening. Thank you to Mr. Mayor, to the city councilors, and to the city manager for inviting me to speak and for making it possible to speak via Zoom. I'm grateful for these hybrid opportunities. I am a Lowell resident. I live at 27 Mort Avenue in Centerville, and I'm also the pastor of Elliott Presbyterian Church on the edge of downtown Lowell at 273 Summer Street. The Christian and Jewish scriptures both tell us to pray and work for the well-being of the cities in which you live. And so I take this civic engagement work as part of my faith calling, as well as something that I just care about personally. Thank you to the City Council for moving forward the amendment to the consent decree. I'll echo the words of everyone else who has spoken to say that access to voting is a top priority for us, and in the current atmosphere that we're in, it's, I think, really important that we do everything in our power to make sure the residents of our city not only have access to vote easily, but also have educational resources in multiple languages to understand the new system and to know where to vote. So I urge you to, I hope, work together to overcome the challenges that are before you so that we can move forward as expeditiously as possible and get the word out. And I commend that work to you. And again, thank you to the City Council and to the Election Commission. It is my sincere hope that we will indeed have 16 or more polling places in time for the preliminary and the November election. Thank you.
Thank you.
Zaris German George.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council, and Madam Manager. My name is Zara East Sherman George. I reside at 53 Tolman Avenue, Lowell, Mass. And I am here tonight to reiterate my point from last meeting to keep our polling stations open. Complaining about how hard it is to fix this problem gives us, the community, the sense that you all do not care about our votes. People should have the right to vote in every election, and especially in the most important one, which is our local government, and not have that said government suppress their voices. When this community elected you all, we put our trust in you that you would do the right thing and make the best choices for this city. So please, I ask that you listen to the community that elected you and work around the clock to add more polling locations. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Deb Belanger.
Mayor Leahy, City Councilors, and Madam Manager. My name is Deb Belanger, and I live at 65 La Plume Avenue in Lowell. I want to thank the Election Commission for listening to the public and to the council for amending the decree and for working diligently to increase polling locations in Lowell. Now is the time for this body to be vigilant to ensure that the city is doing its best to quickly act to get this approved by the plaintiffs and the federal judge. Many options have been outlined in order to achieve this before the September 1 deadline. It gives you 25 days. Two men just went into space. I really think that we can get this accomplished. I think there is much at stake not to do so. We cannot afford to be labeled as the fourth largest city in the Commonwealth who is not providing the best access for voters to vote. This body has the power to make a difference. I have no doubt that you are willing to do so. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Julie Lee.
Hello, my name is Dr. Julie Lay at 161 Jackson Street. I'm here representing Lowell Community Health Center, where I'm the Chief of Specialty Services for the eye care and dental departments. Thank you, Mayor, Madam Manager, and counselors. Voting access is truly a critical issue for this and every community, and we appreciate you having this meeting tonight. When we think of healthcare, we often think of what happens within the walls of our doctor's offices or within places like Lowell Community Health Center. But it isn't that simple, and while there's no question we provide exceptional patient care inside our walls, healthcare really happens out there in the community, in our home, and through our schools, and through community organizations, and so much more. As a community health center, we are committed to assuring that patients have what they need: access to food, a home, personal security, a sense of belonging, ability to have their voices heard, and that cuts right to the root cause of many healthcare needs. What good does it really do to take care of people in the exam room and then send them right back in the conditions that made them sick in the first place? Voting is one of those things that has a direct impact on health, and we need to make sure the impact isn't a negative one because of limits to access. The U.S. Department of Health and Human Services Healthy People 2030 campaign framework identifies civic participation as a social determinant of health. Part of civic participation is exercising one's right to vote. They found that, quote, participating in the electoral process by voting is an example of civic participation that impacts health. Studies show that voter participation is associated with better self-reported health, and individuals who did not vote reported poorer health overall. When asked what citizens could do to support public health, the late Dr. Jack Geiger, founder of this health center movement, which began right here in Massachusetts, responded simply, they should get out and vote. It's a powerful reminder of how voting is for the patients we serve, patients who face a wide range of barriers to health and are too often challenged by their economic well-being and equal access to education, affordable housing, food access, safe streets, and so much more. Our patients are as diverse as the city of Lowell. In fact, 41% are best served in a language other than English, and 58% of our patients live at or below 100% of the federal poverty line. That's $26,000 a year for a family of 4. Many work hourly, low-wage jobs, and for them, taking time off for important activities, including the time to vote, is really very difficult. We believe that having more accessible polling locations can lead to increased voting, especially in populations who face the types of challenges I just spoke of. The reduction in polls feels counter to our City of Lowell's commitment to community inclusivity and belonging, and we hope you will increase the number of polling locations to assure maximum participation in a process that directly impacts the well-being of our community. And let me also be clear, COVID-19 and its variants remain a very real threat. Reducing polling locations directly conflicts with a very basic premise that we all need to continue to practice, social distancing. So reduced polling locations will ensure more people at each of the remaining sites. And at a very fundamental level, and with everything this community has gone through over the last 16 months, this simply doesn't make sense. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, and thank you for your vote here tonight. We appreciate it, and our patients at Lowell Community Health Center do as well. Thank you.
Thank you.
Pam Andrews.
Hi, I'm going to remove this real quick. My name is Pam Andrews. I live in South Lowell. I'm actually canvassing the neighborhoods and giving out polling information, not polling, but voting and the new voting information. And one thing I've come across is no one knows what's going on out in the city. I've lived here 5 years, registered before I moved here to vote. I just got my letter in May saying that I'm now registered to vote in a city I've lived in for 5 years. no information on a polling site or anything. And just being out in the trenches and talking to people every day, there's just a huge disconnect between on what's going on in the city council and what's going on in the community. To take away polling sites would be horrendous because half these people don't even know where to vote, or the ones who do know to vote, they don't speak English very well, and they're just used to the location that they go to. And yes, it'd be great to add new polling sites, but don't take away the old ones. Don't take away Greenhilge or the STEM school, places that people have memorized to go to be able to vote. Don't limit them in having to let them learn new locations and things like that. I actually would like to send out an invite to anybody who would like to come out and canvass with us and actually get to talk to the people and see what is going on and where this disconnect is. Because we offer languages in Khmer, Portuguese, Spanish, and in English. And we are actually dropping off letters of who's running in their district. So we are informing as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony Melissi.
Good evening. My name is Anthony Melissi. I am a UMass Lowell student and a resident of District 8 in the Upper Highlands, where I am representing a growing voting bloc in our city, which is young people. We all know that the change in the voting system poses a threat to voter turnout, and city officials should be taking any necessary steps to increase turnout come Election Day, because democracy is stronger and more effective when we all participate. And I would like to thank you all, especially for taking the necessary steps as we see this meeting, so thank you. Nonetheless, the proposal to cut the number of polling locations by 40% in the city, while we have an increase of around 13,000 new registered voters, is still a dangerous decision. Many young people, like myself, are often turned off from politics because it is traditionally inaccessible. Making politics and voting physically harder and more inaccessible will ensure that young people will stay home come Election Day. I would prefer that young people come out and vote so we can build a better and more equitable city, but it's hard to make that argument and convince young people to come out and vote when there are less polling locations for them to come so. It would be harder for them to come and vote. So I am urging the city to scrap the idea of making it harder for thousands of Lowellians to vote and instead make democracy more accessible by preserving our voting locations. And again, I would like to reiterate my gratefulness for all of you to actually do that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yanju Choi.
Good evening, Mayor, City Councilors, and Madam Manager. My name is Yunji Choi, and I live in 527 Pawtucket Boulevard, and I'm the Executive Director of Coalition for a Better Acre and part of Lowell Votes Coalition. I would like to first applaud the city of Lowell for making a huge progress on how City Council gets elected. And this is such a tremendous year for a great change. And I hope this wonderful opportunity doesn't turn into more of a harm for the city. And it is proven efforts to increase voter participation have largely focused on more of efficient and convenient way to bring voters to polls. This includes early voting, mail-in voting, and providing convenient voting locations. And I really thank your effort by filing a home rule petition to provide early voting, mail-in voting, and drop boxes opportunities that was passed a couple weeks ago. And I do want to also mention that a few years ago when city implemented their early voting, city did not decrease voting locations. As a matter of fact, city increased quite a bit of voting locations. CBA actually hosted as one of the polling location, and it was a great success. And so we would like, as you add more options, you don't want to take away polling locations and opportunities for people to go out and vote. And reducing polling location by 40% will result in a reduction of votings from elders, low-income communities, and communities who has language barriers. It was actually Maria Claudio, unfortunately, wasn't able to join, but when she contacted the city City actually wasn't able to provide translation, so that's actually why we had a written statement, which was in some ways it was very lucky that we had the statement so we can express her opinions. But if city is not able to translate someone who wants to speak at a city council meeting, I'm not sure what kind of outreach work that city can do in very, very short time. So I'm very concerned about how we're going to be reaching out to the community. Couple mailings or social media posting is not going to reach our communities. And that's why people like Pam and CMAA and Lowell Votes Coalition and a lot of the candidates are knocking doors, but they need information of where people will be voting. Without all the proper information, we're not going to be able to get everyone to vote. So I truly, truly ask the city to, whatever the decision that gets made, to make sure that we make a decision and go for and have information for us to really share. I understand logistically it is a very difficult situation to have more than one polling locations. But we heard from some of the experts and attorneys that it is possible. And all we ask the city is to try to make all the effort you can. Councilor Murcia mentioned last time, like try your best and see what happens. And if city tries all the options and if it doesn't work, then whatever happens, we communities that are here will work with the city to try to get as many people out to vote, and we'll work hard and we'll partner with the city. And I already made a I already have commitments from CBA, CMAA, Lowell Alliance, Boys and Girls to have volunteers at the poll location if there are more than one polling locations. Not only these nonprofit workers are familiar with the new system, but we also, many of us are bilingual and we are all culturally competent, which will also help at the polling locations. So we are really asking city that we want to be a partner. This is not a fight, but that we want the partnership with the city. And I just want to quickly share a quick data. I just went in online today and I looked up how many polling locations other cities have. Worcester, that has 185,000 people, has 44 polling locations. Springfield, with 152,000 people, have 45 locations. Cambridge, with 120,000 people, have 27 locations. Brockton, 95,678 people, has 23 locations. New Bedford, with 95,000 people, 28 locations. Quincy, 94,600 people with 25 locations. And Lawrence, with 80,000 people, has 14 locations. Before I end, I'd like to ask questions to all the city councilors. Are you okay with having 25% of polling location than other cities with similar number of people? Then we changed the election systems to make city more equitable and to provide better access to voters. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Kate Lawrence.
Hello, everyone. My name is Kate Lawrence, and I reside at 20 Bishop Street. I was born and raised in Lowell. I'm an educator in the city, and my husband and I decided to raise our son here. 2013, my husband and I bought a house in the Oakland section of Lowell. So for the past 8 years, we have created a home and started many traditions. One of those traditions involves our civic duty. I know. So on the day of voting, we meet up after work, we walk over to our local polling station at the Pine School. We see neighbors, friends, and I even run into students' families. It's truly a fun event for us. It's amazing. So we were looking forward to continuing this tradition with our son so he could see how cool voting is as well. Unfortunately, we heard that the city was cutting back on voting locations, and the Pine School was one of those spaces being eliminated. It devastated us. I know you have heard many valid reasons today why it's so important to keep polling locations open in our city, but I wanted you to hear my personal connection to this decision that is being made for our city. Thank you so much for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Mary Torres.
Hi, good evening, everybody. Mayor Leahy, councilors, city manager, and staff, and everyone who was here, who has spoken, who's listening at home, might be checking in on this afterwards. I'm a resident and voter at 85 Royal Street. I am also current coordinator of Lowell Votes Coalition, which has been building for the past 6-7 years. We are all partners in this coalition together. We're co-creating this democracy together with this new system that is being enacted. And I am just so grateful for the attention to and intentionality of this process. I know it's complicated, I know, and now we have this much time, right? So let's, just grateful we're here today and figuring it out along the way. There's a lot that I could share. I just want to say so many things that have been noted. In terms of outreach, we can definitely surpass this gold star that maybe someone in the Secretary of State's office has named for our community. Excuse me, I get nervous physically, even though I'm always a little more prepared than I feel. So I'll just get to a point. At a time when we're sorting through this COVID recovery and dealing with environmental, educational, economic, health, equity, and other concerns in the city, we need voter engagement more than ever. I believe that, and it was mentioned, grateful to have someone from the Health Center here today, that civic engagement is a social determinant of health. We know that. And I just want to ask all of us collectively to get the word out. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Maria Lopez.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, city councilors, and Madam Manager. My name is Maria Lopez, and I live at 29 New York Street in Lowell, in the Pawtuckaville section. I was going to request that you take the vote that has been taken, so now I want to thank you for taking that vote, for taking into consideration the wishes of the citizens of Lowell, including mine. And I also want to let you know that any changes that are made, I just went, while I was sitting there, on the State of Massachusetts website to look up my voting information. And I still has the old information, so if somebody can let them know that all that needs to be updated somehow. But, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sally Coulter.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, city councilors, Madam Manager. My name is Sally Coulter. I live at 200 Market Street, Canal 1. And I'd like to thank the councilors for the vote they took tonight. It's clear that you've been listening to the residents and the various obstacles that one polling location creates for so many. So I'm going to skip that part, which I was going to go through. But I'm urging that you adopt 2 or more locations for districts and give some flexibility to where people vote, and particularly when feasible, make those current voting locations. In my district, District 4, there are at least 3 neighborhoods, maybe 4, and I would encourage 3 voting locations. 1 across the river, possibly the Greenhouse School, 1 at Lowell High, and the 3rd at the Rogers School. This would approximate more closely where people currently vote and cut down on voter confusion. I appreciate the difficulties incurred in all these changes, but urge speed in seeking these changes, utilizing the roadmap that Jeff Foster proposed, or, thank you for your vote tonight. Massachusetts is not a state that puts impediments into voting. And Lowell is a can-do city. If you just look at what the litter crew, what the CBA, what Lowell Votes, the various organizations, this city gets together and they get things done. So let's just get to it.
Thank you.
Jeff Foster.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, councilors, Madam Manager, Madam Solicitor. It's an honor to be here tonight. Mr. Mayor, thank you to you and your office for putting together this special meeting so quickly, given the time sensitivity of things. I've been involved in this discussion both as a resident of this city. I live at 122 Humphrey Street, but also in my professional capacity as the Executive Director for Common Cause Massachusetts. And I joined with many others in this room, individuals, residents, and community organizations, in shock when we learned that there was a proposal put forward to reduce our polling locations by 40%. With the helpful input of lawyers, experts, advocacy groups, community leaders, and everyday residents, we learned that there were two options that the city could pursue. Either use the existing wards and precincts, which has with it a lot of administrative concerns, or you could potentially subdivide the new districts by getting special permission through the federal consent decree. Since this council spoke in support of the law department and election office pursuing this option, Common Cause was proud to give to the Election Commission and you all a memo titled The Roadmap to 16 Polling Locations. This is a specific and detailed outline of the steps the city could take to get 2 polling locations in each district. Since the adoption of that plan, the plaintiff's lawyer sent an email to the law department this past Monday agreeing to that plan and being ready and willing to quickly work with the law department to update the consent decree. I am thrilled to see tonight that there is a language being proposed and before the council, and I just want to personally thank the solicitor for your quick work on that, and thank you to the council for your vote here tonight. In an email we received just tonight from Secretary Galvin's office that was shared with you all before this meeting started, it maintains a strong substance and agreement with that plan. In it, Director Tassinari asks some really good questions that are helpful to us as we're moving through this process. As the solicitor read from, you took my quote. The director does say and asks, if the issue is to just make it easier to vote, is it really necessary to create sub-districts for all the councilor districts, or just subdivide the ones where there are challenges to accessing polling places? And she does go on to reference District 4. I'm encouraged to see in Director Tassinari's email that she says, and I quote, would recommend seeking special legislation or amending the consent decree to ensure the administration of the election is consistent with the purpose of the consent decree. I do want to say, and I think this is important, that the Election Commission rightly voted to reconsider the original plan, and I do want to thank the chair and the commission for their work on that. We do agree with Secretary Galvin's office that perhaps the best move now, given the time constraint, is to keep open the consideration of only subdividing the certain districts based on accessibility. And we already have some ideas to propose to the Election Commission that could potentially result in that, and also not having to close a single polling location. Now, I do want to address, it is unfortunate that the email you received has a tone that's based on a misunderstanding by the city of my earlier statements to date. And so, for the record, I never said that the Secretary approved our roadmap, nor that they communicated with me directly. I said the roadmap and plan was created based in part on feedback from their office by way of multiple emails through Common Cause's attorney, David Sullivan. I hope that you will continue to make your decision on this issue based on the substance of the email and not on the tone. It is okay to disagree. It's one of the things that makes our democracy so great. So now I ask, let's move forward, focused on the real work that lies ahead. Together and in good faith, ensuring our democracy is as accessible as possible. In closing, this is hard work. I am here to help. I'm proud to bring my experience, relationships, and resources to the city's full disposal in pursuit of a democracy that is accessible and equitable for all. especially in this of all our elections. It's both my responsibility as a professional in this current role, but also my will as a voter and resident of this great city. Thank you all.
Thank you, Jeff.
Marty Hogan. Marty Hogan.
Good evening. Thank you for the opportunity to speak, council members, manager, Mr. Mayor. I spoke before on this, and I'm not going to elaborate too much, but part of the issues that I see out there when talking to everybody in the city, especially in Centerville, is that, as others have mentioned, they don't know what's going on. I think it's incumbent upon us to make sure that in the future, and especially right now, but in the future, that we address this and we make sure that this information is brought to the light of day and make sure that all residents know this when changes are happening, and not until the last minute or when there's a council meeting convened to take care of it. A lot of people are talking about transparency. They don't see it with this election because we've changed the type of election, which everybody or most people have agreed that is a good move. But they see that one polling place is going to cause a hell of a lot of problems. And it's going to, not intentionally, but inevitably, it may reduce the number of people that vote. What I think we need is, we always pride ourselves of being welcoming in Lowell. I want to be a welcoming city. One of the things about being welcoming is that the people who live here know what's going on. So I think education is the biggest thing right now, is that we have to remember after this, and I applaud your vote to continue and work on this, but the education is what's needed. Education to every single resident in every area. I think we need to ask ourselves, why are people voting less? Why are people coming out less? Why are people getting involved less? It's because they don't see the transparency of the system and of what we do as a city. And I think it's very important that we do. So education, education, education. But I think in the end that we need to make sure in the next couple of weeks that everybody who is a voter in the city and anybody that intends on voting knows where they're going and what they should do. And I think it's incumbent upon the city and upon the whole apparatus of Lowell, whether it's the nonprofits or the neighborhood associations, whom are out there and welcoming to the city to come out and educate us about this, that we have those discussions and we make sure that everybody knows where to vote for all of our sake. We want to make sure that everybody has equal access. And that's what's very important about this, is that everybody needs to have open access to our elections. Thank you very much for this moment to speak.
Stacy Thompson.
Hello, everyone. Good evening, Mayor Leahy, City Manager Donahue, councilors. It's good to be here in person for the first time, so I'm excited about that. I was going to, kind of try to morph my speech because that's what people have been doing, but I feel like in its totality, it really makes sense. So if you could indulge me to do that, I do appreciate you accepting the consent decree amendment because I think that's really important. But it reads, seemingly days ago, prior to this session, the citizens of Lowell sighed a collective sigh of relief based on the acknowledgement of and the agreement to the necessity of 2 polling stations per district. Strategy and offers of manpower were shared, as well as a call to action based on the time element that is needed to enact these measures. It makes me think, if only we had started this work when Dr. Pursley had drawn the lines, would we be in the same position? Less than 2 weeks later, again, we joined together to ensure the work is carried out. After all, puzzles don't get solved by looking at them, but by taking each piece and putting it in its place. We are all aware that this year's election will be like none other for a host of reasons. That does mean that a challenge or two may occur, but based on the history of Lowell and its mills, hard work is not something that's new to this city, neither is ingenuity. As a woman, not a minority, but a person of color, more specifically a black woman, the daughter of a father foreign born, as someone who was told by guidance counselors that I couldn't get into the college that I then graduated from, I am all too familiar with the idea, impact, and potential power of obstacles and barriers. If this were a game like Mario Kart or Call of Duty, like my nephew liked to play, the barriers would be exciting, interesting, but this is a decision that can change election outcomes, and it's not a game at all. Decisions that we make here cannot just be reset. There's no do-over feature. The choices that we make here have real-life impact. Yes, doing the right thing, the equitable thing for all Lowellians will take expedient and decisive action. In this Lowell, our Lowell, the citizens, voters, need and want voting to be possible, easy, and attainable and equitable. In its complexity, leaning into experts, both local and beyond, the equipped, those with knowledge and ability to problem solve collaboratively. What Lowell does not need are meetings upon meetings where problems are displayed and dissected, but no measures actually are taken to reach our achieved goal of 2 polling stations per district or equitable access to the vote. We need to empower the voters and do all that can be done to ensure that they do not, for lack of access, become disinterested, disengaged, or voiceless. We have verbalized Lowell. Now it's time to mobilize. Thank you.
Thank you.
Stephen Malagodi.
Hi, Steve Malagodi, 200 Market Street. What she said. Yeah, 200 Market Street. I also work with 350 Mass of Greater Lowell. I spoke at the first election committee meeting when we first became aware that the plan was to have 1 polling place per district, and I want to commend the election committee and the council for the work that they've done in the ensuing, 3 weeks, 4 weeks since that first meeting. So I appreciate all the hard, difficult work that's been done, and I urge you to proceed with all speed to get this process, get this thing done, so that we have at least 2 polling places per district. And I don't want to take your time because you've been here all night already, but I did want to say, why this issue is important to my organization. We need people to have faith in their government, because when people lose faith in their government, the issue that we care about, that is stopping global warming and climate change, when people lose faith, 2 things happen. They respond with apathy, or they respond with, shall we say, unproductive behaviors. So we really need people to have faith in their government. And just as a kind of a joke, the biblical definition of faith is evidence of things unseen. But this faith has two aspects. One is that their government represents them, and the new districts and the consent decree is a step in that direction. The other aspect of this faith is that they have to have faith that their government can get something done. And so I urge you to proceed as quickly as possible. It would be really good if the citizens of Lowell could see what their city government can do, instead of just constantly hearing about what they can't do. So thank you for the work that you've done, and please, let's make this happen as quickly as possible, because as others have said, nobody out there seems to know what's going on. Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes the speeches, Mr. Mayor.
All right. Thank you. I want to thank everybody for coming down tonight. Everybody spoke very well. We stay within the timeline and right on point. We have a lot of work to do ahead of us. So thank you again for coming down and let your voices be heard. We appreciate it. You've been heard. And we're going to adjourn so we can get to work. Mr. Drinkwater?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And I want to thank the speakers. I'm not going to opine on their comments, just so not everybody feels they have to jump in. But I jotted down a note at the beginning of the speakers because Chairwoman Zaneku made a suggestion that I thought was a good one, and I wanted to make sure we followed up on it, which was to invite the parties who will be participating, hopefully in the process of drawing boundaries for sub-districts. That's the vendor LHS, the Secretary of State's office, and also the plaintiff's attorneys. The suggestion was made to invite them to the next meeting to be able to present or answer questions. I don't know if a motion is needed to make that
I just don't know,
request.
is that our meeting or their meeting?
Well, we both meet on Tuesday. I mean, I don't know that we can act for the election commission. It probably makes sense that they were maybe available for both, but if a motion was needed to make the request, I just wanted to make sure that got made tonight, to just reach out and request that those parties, potentially be made available to just give an update on the process
Yeah, we'll
as of
find
Tuesday.
out. And I just don't know whose meeting that should be, so let me double check that and we'll jump on that.
Okay. It may not require a motion, but I hope
Sure.
if they can
Madam
be
Solicitor.
available, that they be available.
Sure, Madam Solicitor?
Thanks. We will certainly continue to invite them. We have invited all three parties to, I think it was the last two meetings of the Election Commission. None of the three parties were able to attend. That was also a motion of the chair of the Election Commission to continue to invite the parties. I've had a couple of conversations with plaintiffs' counsel asking if they would attend the meetings, and to date it has not yet worked out. However, it should also be said that with all of these groups, during the course of the day, there has been numerous hours spent with the Secretary of State's office, with LHS and officials from LHS, continuing to work on the issue.
Okay. So we'll continue to reach out. Councilor Mercier?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very interesting, the speakers that took time to come down here this evening. What I wanted to know was, people are wondering, are there going to be any rides offered to the polls, and who would do that? Where would it originate from? Who would they call? People had very interesting concerns, so we gotta, although the public is having a campaign, the people running for office, there's another campaign in this city hall, to the campaign to let everybody know what's going on, where the polling places are. Some people that I've spoken to, they're right. They don't know where they're going. They don't know where they're going to vote. It's very confusing, and I know it's early, and I'm not trying to pressure people, but we have to get the word out. Like, this is District 4. You're voting over here, and you're voting over there. That's what we need to know. You have District 1. These are the people running for office. It has to be transparent. We can't keep this a secret. I know that you're going to do it, but I got to reiterate what the people said. Information, transparency, get the word out. It's a campaign for this city, and that's my
Right, once
Thank
we
you.
establish where we're voting, we'll get
get a letter.
information out, we'll get transportation information out, and we'll make sure that gets out, different languages and, everything we can do. Did you have anything, Madam Mayor?
Just that we will be offering transportation. We have before, we will again. All that information will be out there. This is one of the concerns we've had all along, is to be able to have ample time to educate people, especially on where they should vote and on the new system. So those are all things that are uppermost on our concern list and that we will be addressing. And let me just say, the work has been nonstop between the law department, the Secretary of State's office, LHS, in every hour of the day, days this week and more beyond that have been concentrated on this. You know, engineers have been trying to solve this problem. So this is not something the city has taken lightly at all. And so, you know, if as far as bringing updates, we will bring updates to the council as to every single development, whether it has to do with what they've been able to determine, you know, through the, you know, technology in making sure that they can, what they need to have from the poll pads and the like. So we'll keep the council up to date on this.
Thank you very much. Motion adjourned by Councilor Conway, second by Councilor Chow. All in favor, say aye. Thank you. Nice job, Michael.